Greetings, everyone. Boy, yeah, I love those old anthology horror movies. That's great stuff. I mean, the nice thing about anthology horror is that it's just a bunch of different stories. You're not like stuck with one story through the whole thing, like, one of those regular movies. So it's like, if you don't like one of the stories particularly much, who cares? You've got another story coming along. It's great stuff. Oh, there's Sam. Well, I guess we better head downstairs and see what he's got picked out for us today. Let's go. How's it going, Sam? Yeah, that was a really good choice yesterday. The double bill, Tales from the Crypt and Vault of Horror. Awesome stuff. I think we enlightened a few people as to the the wonderful world of early '70s anthology horror films. So what have you got for us today? Oh, I see it's another Blu-ray. Oh, and a nice one too. Yeah, fairly recent film this time around. Actually, I think it just came out about a year ago. I saw this on the shelf a number of times, and it just kind of caught my eye. I liked, the look of the slipcover and whatnot. But I actually managed to snag this in Walmart's summer blowout sale for $5. It normally goes for about $15-20, I think. I'm of course talking about Dorian Gray, the latest adaptation of the classic Oscar Wilde horror story / satire of upper-class life, The Picture of Dorian Gray. So how does this adaptation stand up as far as, being faithful to the original story and whatnot, or just being an effective film in general? Let's find out today on the Multimedia Chronicles. Welcome back. Dorian Gray. Yeah, well, this one kind of came out of nowhere. I hadn't even heard that there was another adaptation of The Picture of Dorian Gray out. And, yeah, it kind of stuck out on the shelf to me. I kept seeing it there and thought, oh, that's kind of cool, new adaptation of Dorian Gray. My fear, of course, was that they had modernized it or changed it in some way, but I have to say, this was a very pleasant surprise. A very pleasant surprise. First off, I mean, it is set in the time that it's supposed to be set in. It is a period piece. It is a period horror film. But this is not a blood and guts, gore-fest horror film. Oh, no. This is a very psychological horror film, which is something we don't see very often. So I actually found it something of a treat, simply because it's the kind of horror film we don't see very often. So it stars Ben Barnes in the title role of Dorian Gray, and Colin Firth as sort of his mentor character, as it were. Essentially what happens is a young man comes to London to become a part of the upper class, high society, and is taken under the wing of a gentleman who has been in that society for quite some time, played by Colin Firth. And he essentially plants the idea that you just got to live for yourself. Life is all about pleasure. Life is all about just, doing things for yourself and for your own pleasure, essentially. And, well, Dorian Gray basically starts off as a clean slate. I mean, he comes in as a bright-eyed, enthusiastic, naive youth, and he immediately takes to this man and his philosophy, and very quickly embraces that lifestyle. And as he becomes more embroiled in it, it's becomes more debauched, basically. I mean, just to put it bluntly. So at one point, Dorian has a portrait painted of him, and he quickly becomes like a darling of society, and like everybody loves him, and he's a beautiful, good-looking young man, and the ladies just fall over themselves for him and stuff like that. So it's very easy for him to get into that high society and to attain all the pleasures that he desires. So at one point he has a portrait painted of himself. He is somewhat narcissistic as well, of course, and he has a painting portrait of himself, and it's a beautiful painting done by one of the leading artists of the time, and it's just wonderful. And he hangs it in his house and stuff, and it's great. And then he continues on his life of debauchery and just corrupting anyone who comes in contact with him. And as he carries on with this, the painting begins to change. Now what the idea is, this is the psychological aspect of it, essentially. As time goes on, Dorian himself looks exactly the same. In fact, it appears that he's immortal. He looks the same, no matter how many years have passed. He's just as young and beautiful as he always was. But the painting changes. The more evil Dorian commits in his life, the more twisted and deformed the painting becomes. Because, see, the painting shows the true Dorian Gray. Not physically, but like his soul, and how twisted and evil and corrupt his soul has become. Well, on the outside, he still appears, beautiful and youthful and wonderful. But the picture shows him as he truly is, a twisted, gnarled, evil, corrupt person. And it just gets worse and worse and worse the longer it goes on. And it gets to the point where he basically hides the painting from sight. So there's a long stretch of the movie where we don't see the painting. And I give you this detailed plot summary because this is a really old story, and most people know the gist of it anyway. It's basically, okay, guy does evil stuff, and the painting shows how evil he's become inside. That's essentially the gist of it. Now, I have not read the original story. I just kind of have a passing familiarity with it. I mean, it is one of those old stories that Oscar Wilde. The thing that's great about it is you can really get a sense of Oscar Wilde's wit in this. Yes, at the heart of it, it's a psychological horror story, but Oscar Wilde was, he was very much a part of that society, and was no stranger to debauchery himself. He was very openly and flamboyantly gay, for example, in a society that, we were nowhere near where we are now, where homosexuality is just, hey, some people are gay, some people aren't, whatever. No, it wasn't like that back then. He was basically seen as, you could almost make the argument that he was doing almost a satire of himself and how other people saw him, in the form of Dorian Gray. And I'm sure that's very much a part of where the idea came from. It's like, okay, well, let's do a story about someone who is what everyone thinks I am. And he's also making fun of the society that he was a part of. He was a satirist, first and foremost. He just did satire, like biting, scathing satire that was hilarious, but also, if you happened to be the target of it, it was brutal and unrelenting. But that's why he was so brilliant. He was one of the first really big notable people to sort of pull no punches and do that in his writing, and that's really where he gained a lot of his notoriety, was just through his unabashed pointing the finger at all the things that were wrong with the world that we live in. And he was one of the first to do that. But but you see a lot of that in Dorian Gray, and that's one of the things I really enjoyed about it, was it has this dark aspect of it. Like, you see not only the moments where where Dorian brings someone into his thrall, as it were, where into his influence, and does whatever he wants to do with them, and then casts them aside. But at several points in the film, he crosses those characters again, and you see just how much he not only corrupted them in that moment of debauchery way back when, but just how much he completely destroyed their lives from that, and how he set them on a path that they could not get out of. That he could, because he knows the boundaries, he knows the rules. He can stay within that threshold of just having fun, but at the expense of everybody who comes in contact with him. It's really I thought it was a very smart story. The only part where it falls down, the only part where I think it breaks down a little bit, and this is just because it's a modern film and they got to modernize something, right? Is in the original story, the painting is just a painting that changes over time as Dorian Gray becomes more corrupt and evil. But in the movie, they added a little bit more character to the painting, where as it becomes more corrupted, Dorian sees it move. And it starts to like growl at him and snarl at him and stuff. And it almost looks like it's the painting's trying to escape out of the painting and kill him. That's not really in the original story as far as I'm aware. From my understanding of it, the painting was just a painting, and that was it. And that's they didn't need to add all that additional like CG effects work to the painting in this. I mean, they could have kept it very subtle and straightforward like that, and it still would have been just as effective. In fact, I think it would have been more effective. They could have done more with less, and I don't think it was necessary to sort of take it over the top like that, because I feel that it lessened the impact of the film. But good film. I was very pleasantly surprised. And you know how much I picked this up for? $5. Yep, $5, which I think I mentioned in the intro. But it's worth mentioning again, because since getting this for $5, I have not seen it for $5 since. So let's take a quick look at the contents here. And they don't tell you on the back. Let's see if it says here. There we are. Special features. For some reason, it's not quite the same on the back of the slipcover as it is on the back of the keep case. Okay, so special features. We have audio commentary with director Oliver Parker and scriptwriter Toby Finlay. The making of Dorian Gray. Deleted scenes. Costume, location, and effects featurettes. And more. I don't know offhand what the "and more" is. But I did watch most of the featurettes and some of the deleted scenes, and there's some good stuff in there, and they talk about just how they chose to approach this particular adaptation. This story has been adapted a few times in the past. I have not seen any of the previous adaptations. I honestly don't actually know how I became familiar with the story. I think it was just in talking with some of my relatives over the years who had been familiar with it, and I remember my grandmother on my mother's side was quite familiar with it, and really liked that story. And so it was probably through her telling of the tale to me that I became familiar with it, and it just kind of stuck with me because I was really young at the time. Yeah, so anyway, Dorian Gray, check it out. I think you might be pleasantly surprised if you're looking for a bit of a classier horror film, more psychological. There is a little bit of blood and guts in it, but if you're a gorehound, overlook it, because you will be disappointed, because this is not a gorehound movie. This is a classy horror movie from a classy writer who was making fun of the classy class he was a part of. Alrighty. Well, let's take a quick look at the packaging, and then we'll say goodbye for now.
Dorian Gray. Now, see if you can see the slipcover. Oh, yeah, you can really see it's a bit of a fingerprint magnet. I do apologize for that. Oh, hey, you can see, well, you can see me cover. Hi, how's it going? Anyway, you can see like the beautiful shininess is quite pretty. It's got sort of this blue sheen to it, which is classy. There on the back. But yeah, it was actually this slipcover that sort of caught my eye originally. I was considering picking it up for a while, but didn't. And there's just the regular art. So let's move the slipcover aside for the moment. There you go. But yeah, when I saw it for $5 in the Walmart sale, obviously I couldn't resist. So there's the description on the back. There's a few special features on here. I mean, there's a commentary and some featurettes and stuff. I haven't listened to the commentary yet, but I did enjoy the featurettes quite a bit. And Why is it so far down? I don't know. Anyway. Oh, it's probably because of the angle. Yeah. So there's the spine. So there's the spine and stuff like that. So then if we open it up, basically we have it's a case where we have a reversible cover, so it has the French on the opposite side. And then there's the cover art, or the, basically just the same kind of thing as the cover art, just on the disc. So if we actually take the disc out, you can see that it just has the French version of the cover underneath. So if you wish to have it en français, you can. So just put all that back together. There you go. Very pretty indeed.
And there you go. Pretty snazzy packaging. As I said, it was the slipcover really caught my eye. It's just so beautiful and shiny and gorgeous. Alrighty, well that's it from me to you for now. So until next time, thanks for watching, and sayonara.